Let's talk about cats. We think we have them figured out, right? Well, today we're going to dive into the hidden science of our feline friends. And I'll tell you right now, you should probably forget everything you think you know because science is starting to show that cats might just be one of the most powerful tools for our own well-being.
You know the stereotype, the cat that's aloof, a little indifferent, maybe doesn't seem to care all that much. But what if I told you that very independence isn't a bug, but a feature that could actually be designed to make us healthier, happier, and even better humans?
And that leads us to this central puzzle, this kind of conundrum we're exploring today. There's this massive gap between how we talk about cats and the reality of how many of us actually live with them.
So, on one hand, you've got the classic image, right? The cat that just couldn't care less. But then you look at the actual data. In a country like Japan, for instance, there are way more pet cats than dogs. We're talking hundreds of thousands more. So what's really going on here? Why are we so drawn to these creatures that are supposedly so indifferent to us?
Okay, so our first clue isn't found in the cat's mind, but actually deep inside our own bodies. It turns out there's this really powerful chemical reaction that kicks off the second we start interacting with them.
The moment you start petting a cat, your brain gets a little hit of oxytocin. You've probably heard of it. It's called the love hormone. It's the same chemical that floods our system when we hug someone we care about. It's basically the neurochemical glue that builds bonds, trust, and affection.
And at the exact same time, the opposite is happening with another chemical. Your cortisol levels start to drop. Cortisol is the body's main stress hormone, and study after study shows that just being around a cat, petting it, can actively lower your cortisol, physically calming you down and dialing back anxiety. And the good stuff doesn't stop there. This whole interaction also triggers the release of serotonin, which helps keep our mood stable, and dopamine, which is all about pleasure and reward. It's basically a little happiness cocktail mixed for you by a purring bartender. Now, this chemical boost is incredible, right? But believe it or not, that's only half the story. The benefits go so much deeper than just feeling good in the moment. Some really groundbreaking research is showing that interacting with a cat is a genuine workout for some of the most important parts of your brain. There was this fascinating study from the Tokyo University of Agriculture where they used this special brain scanning tech to literally peek inside people's brains while they were hanging out with a cat. The researchers broke down what people were doing into 4 really basic categories that, any cat owner will recognize. Just simple touching or brushing, playing with a toy, trying to train the cat to do something like a high five, and of course, feeding it. They wanted to see if these different activities lit up the brain differently. And here's the first huge discovery. Any of these interactions lit up the prefrontal cortex. You can think of this as the CEO of your brain. It's the part that handles complex thoughts, planning, and all of our social behavior. So just spending quality time with a cat gets this super important area humming. But this is where things get really, really interesting. They zoomed in on a specific part of that region, a part that's critical for empathy and for understanding nonverbal cues. Now look at this chart. A simple task like feeding the cat, it barely moved the needle. But trying to do something complex and unpredictable, like training it, whoa, that caused a massive spike in brain activity. And that discovery, that spike in brain activity, that's the key to this whole thing. It reveals that a cat's independence, its so-called aloofness, isn't a drawback at all. It's actually its greatest therapeutic gift to us. So to get why, we have to look at their history for a second. Dogs, we domesticated them through artificial selection. We actively bred them for thousands of years for traits like obedience and submission to help us out. But cats kind of domesticated themselves. They showed up because we had mice and they were great hunters. They coexisted with us, but it was always on their own terms. They were never, ever bred to obey us. And that history has a direct impact on us today. In that same Japanese study, when people tried to train the cats, their success rate was just over 35%. That's it. And it's because cats just aren't wired to follow our commands. And this is where it all clicks into place. The researchers found this amazing paradox. The harder the task was, the bigger the feeling of happiness and reward when it finally worked. The struggle is actually what makes the success so powerful. So here it is. That mental effort, that whole process of trying to understand an independent creature, trying to anticipate its moves, and figuring out how to connect with it on its terms, That is the very workout that strengthens the empathy and communication centers of our brain.
Okay, so a cat makes our brains work harder. So what? How does that actually translate into real-world benefits? Well, it sets off this incredible chain reaction that can genuinely make us better, more well-adjusted people.
Research shows it's kind of like a domino effect. The effort it takes to build a strong bond with a cat improves our own ability to regulate our emotions. And when we get better at emotional regulation, that in turn boosts our capacity for empathy. And having higher empathy, that directly leads to stronger social skills with other people. And this isn't just some cool theory, It's actually being put into practice. There's something called gatotherapy, or cat therapy, which is a method that uses the unique, independent nature of cats to help people manage anxiety, dial down stress, and just improve their overall emotional health. It's real.
So think about where we started. We went from this simple stereotype about aloof cats all the way to a pretty profound neurological truth. Our relationship with these animals is just so much more complex and so much more beneficial than most of us ever imagined.
So let's just recap the big takeaways here. Cats aren't just passive companions, they are active partners in our mental and emotional health. And that famous independence of theirs? It's not a flaw, it's the very feature that challenges our brain to grow. The work we put into understanding them directly strengthens our own emotional and social smarts. Which leaves me with one last thought for you. The next time your cat completely ignores you when you call its name, or